Hello, my name is Jane Diplock, sociology student, semester 1, 2017. This is my final examination for the subject. Here's my student card. Excuse me for referring to my computer here. I would like to discuss the relationship between social order, social control and deviance. I would also like to see how it relates to a behaviour that is perceived as deviant, alcoholism. To start the discussion, I will explain the definition of social order, social control and deviance. Evan Willis describes social order as shared values and norms necessary for social order to continue. The sanctity of human life and property is one of the shared values. Societies throughout the world have behaviours linked to each community group, institution, which have values and practices in order to maintain and enforce a set of rules and values that is understood to create social order. Social order can be referred to as behavioural patterns that are learned without the need to have a written law. Social control, which is identified by Crossman in March 2017, as the many ways in which our behaviour, thoughts and appearances are regulated by the norms, rules, laws and social structures of society. Social control is a necessary component for social order, for society could not exist without it. Howard Becker, in 1963, stated that social rules are the creation of specific social groups. The close association between social order and social control is regulated by a set of norms and values within society. These norms and values should consider variances, taking into consideration the requirements of the variety of social groups. When considering that social norms and values are understood by society have little fluidity, the possibility of breaking the rules or not conforming to the norms can be known as deviance. Howard Becker, in his paper The Outsiders, describes deviant behaviour as individuals who break a rule that is agreed upon by a group. Van Kreken describes deviance as a norm or rule-breaking behaviour that is usually subject to negative social sanctions. Deviants are the nonconformists who transgress a community's normative standards and are condemned by other influential social groups. As mentioned by Van Kreken, deviance is nonconforming to social, cultural and behavioural norms. Deviance may not necessarily mean that a person is a criminal or violent or breaking any legal laws. Deviation is a move from the social norms set by a particular community or social setting. A deviant person can be portrayed simply as having particular religious beliefs, sexual preferences, or excessive alcohol or drug taking that doesn't sit within the standard practice of society. Social research done at the Social Issues Research Centre have a study called The Social and Cultural Aspects of Drinking, stating that alcohol has been accepted in society and has a central role in human culture since around 4000 BC. Many societies have used intoxicating substances, with alcohol being the most common and culturally acceptable. The earliest recorded use of alcohol has been a social activity and consumption, and behaviour is subjected to self-imposed social controls. Excessive alcohol consumption in countries such as the UK, USA, Australia and Scandinavia can and has been associated with violent and antisocial behaviour, whereas Mediterranean countries are perceived as generally peaceful, harmonious drinkers who use alcohol as an enhancement for the enjoyment of food consumption. Elizabeth Hartney wrote in her PhD in 2016, behaviour that is perceived as socially deviant is highly stigmatised, which often causes as many or more problems for a person engaging in the behaviour than the addiction itself. There is also a large grey area between socially deviant behaviour and socially acceptable or sanctioned behaviour, although subgroups of people with addictions have their own prescribed behaviours and social sanctions that keep addicts feeling like they belong. I found that very interesting, that if you are in a particular social group and that social norm is to drink excessive alcohol, then that's not considered a deviant behaviour. In finishing, I'd like to say that deviant behaviour involving the consumption of alcohol can be perceived by society as not obeying the social norms which have been prescribed by the community or society. The variance of societies that can determine the level of deviance when alcohol is considered is therefore saying that alcoholism in a social setting does not need to be perceived as deviant behaviour if the behaviour is acceptable within the community. Thank you. I'm very nervous. Thank you.